Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord. Welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Of course, we've got two cards to talk about, the latest additions to the Twilight's collection, the Produce SSR for Chiyuki, and Support SSR for Yuika. Keep in mind, of course, these cards are technically limited through Twilight's collection, meaning that they will return in the future, but at an off rate. As long as it is a Twilight's collection banner, you will have a chance to pull either of these cards. If you want your best chance to pull them, now is the time. Starting things off, we have Chiyuki. Not to much surprise, our latest Twicolate edition is Chiyuki, this time supporting Visual Alstroemeria when compared to Twicolate Tenka, who supported Dance. This card has a lot of things happening at once. She has access to healing that can also be converted to memory gauge, AoE appeals that lock opponents out of dealing damage if they attack with the wrong attribute, and even has access to the flexible buff for further support on any teams that she wants to be on that have plus appeals. As always, remember that Twicolate not having access to Hazuki means that you may be stuck at a relatively low-power Chiyuki unless you invest heavily in the banner. Thankfully for Chiyuki, her memory appeal is still huge at 0 stars. She's a card that gives new life to Visual Alstro and will see better success in the future with the addition of further Alstro support that will inevitably show up. She's good, but a strangely dependent Twicolate card on her own. Her roles are Center, Buffer, has access to Memory Gauge Up, has Interest Lock, is a healer, can attack all, and has the flexible buff. I highly recommend pulling for this Chiyuki. If you're somebody that wants to play Visual Alstroemeria, absolutely go for this card, very high recommendation. If that's not your cup of tea, I wouldn't worry about her too much. If you are thinking about maybe doing the team in the future, then that is also something you can choose to do. For her skills. Her 0-star appeal is a visual 3.5 that grants a mental 10% heal, and any excess healing is converted to memory gauge. This has a link appeal, which is a visual 60% buff for 5 turns. Her 1-star appeal is a visual 4.0 to all judges that applies interest lock for 1 turn, and grants a mental 3% heal. If you're unfamiliar with interest lock, think of it like Wonder Guard in Pokemon. How it works is that for the rest of the turn, the attacks made on judges will deal no damage if they do not match the correct attribute that they're attacking. So if your dance appeal goes towards a vocal judge, you'll do no damage. But if your dance appeal goes towards the dance judge, you'll do normal damage. This appeal has a link, which is a visual 1.0 that it ignores the judge's interest. Her 4-star appeal is a visual 5.5 that grants the flexible buff for 1 turn, which, if you do not remember, flexible makes it so that in the following turn, any appeals that you already had that have a plus appeal effect will be activatable regardless of their current condition. So, if you have other cards on your team that have plus appeals, but you can't quite fulfill the requirements for them, this flexible will essentially let you cheat that for 1 turn. This appeal also grants you an additional mulligan after use, and this has a plus appeal, which requires all of Alstroemeria and the number of heals that you've had in this run to be 5 or more. This grants a visual 100% buff for 3 turns. Now for her passives. Her 1-star passive is a visual 50% up and mental 2% heal as long as it's turn 2 or earlier. This has a 30% chance to activate once, and this grants an additional visual plus 150 uncap. Her 2-star passive is a visual 120% up and a mental 2% heal that requires your current mental to be 99% or higher. This has a 30% chance to activate once. This unlocks a vocal dance visual plus 100 uncap. Her 3-star passive is a visual 160% up that requires the number of heal instances in the run to be 8 or more. This has a 30% chance to activate twice, and this grants a mental plus 200 uncap. Her 4-star passive is the Rainbow passive, which we'll talk about in a second, and this comes with a vocal dance visual plus 100 uncap. Her memory appeal, when maxed out, is a visual max 3.2 appeal that scales based on how high your current mental is, and follows up in a link appeal of a visual max 3.5 appeal that scales based on how many heals you've had in the run, which should cap out around 4. Chiyuki's 4-star Rainbow passive is a visual 200% up that requires the full Alstroemeria lineup and the number of heal instances in this fast run to be 6 or more. This has a 30% chance to activate twice and is limited to once per turn. Her Twicolate passive is the same as Rinze's. A boost to memory gauge gain by 5%, and appeal strength by 3% to all members of your team. Much like Rinze before her, Chiyuki continues the newish trend of TC passives providing memory gauge gain and a smaller buff to appeal strength to your whole team. This effect should prove itself to be very good overall, regardless if you're building full Alstro or not. If you're someone that has started to work on gathering know-how, or are close to the end of building up your know-how, consider using this Chiyuki as the last produced card before finishing a know-how book, as she can pass this ability on to said books, so that the rest of your team can have this ability as well. Twilight's collection has not gotten any less expensive, so it's fair to consider that many may only have this Chiyuki at 0 or 1 stars. Her ideal minimum is 2 stars. This gives you access to maybe one of the stronger, easy-to-use passives in the game, accessible from turn 1, and helps you hit like a truck. There's levels of utility in both her passives at this upgrade point, but only later on due to heal instances. Visual Alstroemeria is at least one limited SSR away from being a top contender team again. Chiyuki by herself offers a lot of support for your lineup, but doesn't have as much oomph as you'd like to make her a tier 1 Omega threat to your life, like most of the other Twilight's collection cards are. So, we'll have to see what exactly that card is that they're cooking up for Visual Alstroemeria. For the support recommendations, the MVP of course being Children de Kaho, followed by the Visual Hokuda suite, and cards like either Gap Mikoto, which can be paired alongside Camera Nichika, and the Upside Down Hinata. Visual Hokuda's total synergy has resulted in an insane lineup for visual teams. You can pair it up with cards like Hinata to result in a card that benefits a lot in nearly every situation. It's definitely a setup that's worth the payoff. It's an okay blend of perms and limbs, and there are a growing number of good permanent visual supports that you may be able to utilize alongside some of these other cards that you may have a couple copies of. On to the grades. As a center, Chiyuki earns a very easy double S. A visual 6.7 that can be extremely easy to max out on damage is insane, especially given that the cap for heal instances is lower than most passive requirements within Alstroemeria. If nothing else, consider this to be your best center option in Visual Alstro if you are unable to pick up any additional copies, and you'll probably still put her here even if you max her out. As a unit, she gets anywhere from a B+ to an S+. Chiyuki, as per usual, lacks a lot of firepower at 0 stars, like every other Twicolate, and becomes a near invaluable buff support for Visual Alstro as you gather more copies. She's a lot like TC Madoka in the sense that she's not a general powerhouse like other cards, meaning that she doesn't outright carry the team on her back at this point. Instead, know that this Chiyuki will push your Tenka and Amana cards to new heights when maxed out, so pull wisely, depending on the route you wish to take. Next up, we then have Yuika. Our latest Twicolate support is Yuika, a card that focuses heavily in on buffing Dance Antika through a lot of SP gain, dance stamina, mental reduction, and attention down benefits. Also notably, her 2-star passive benefits 5-member teams like Hokuda alongside Antika, but also for teams like Shiz that want a diverse pool. While this isn't necessarily the most ideal type of passive for a team like Hokuda right now, it might be something to consider in the future if maybe Rainbow becomes a lot more accessible, or if Hokuda switch away from attention up focused builds and can utilize an attention down passive that doesn't necessarily ruin their game plan. Antika and Shiz, however, don't really run into that issue, so they can absolutely use it from the get-go. This card certainly does a lot, and is a key to improving Dance Antika and bringing them into the modern meta. Definitely a card worth investing into, if possible. She has a lot of support skills. Her basic ones are Idol's Bond, Rest Boost, and Stamina Support, and she has 5 unique support skills. Unit Mastery SP reaching plus 14 at level 70, Dance Mastery SP reaching plus 12 at level 75, Dance Mastery Dance Limit Up reaching plus 5 at level 80, Dance Mastery Stamina reaching plus 5 at level 80, and Perfect Mastery reaching plus 5 at level 80. Her support appeal does scale, starting at a Dance 3.0. By level 60, it becomes a Dance 3.1 that raises your dance by 5% for 3 turns, and when maxed out, it's a Dance 3.5 appeal that raises your dance by 25% for 3 turns. Her TFD idea is Dance, her Insight token for Grad is Dance, and her proficiency and landing point is in Appeals, or SP. Yuika's 0-star passive is a Dance 60% up that requires the turn count to be 3 or earlier, and it has a 20% chance to activate twice, and this grants a Dance plus 50 uncap. Her 1-star appeal is a Dance 3.8 that reduces your own mental by 15, and grants a Dance plus 50 uncap. Her 2-star passive is a Dance 120% up and attention 100% down that requires the max number of different units on your team to be 4 or more, or equal to 1. So essentially, if you're running full Antika, that's your equal to 1, and if you're running She's, that's how you can get your 4. This has a 20% chance to activate twice, and this grants a dance plus 50 uncap. Her 3-star Appeal is a dance 5.0 that reduces your own mental by 20, and grants a possible dance maximum 100% up for 3 turns that scales based on how much mental you actually reduced through that 20% reduction. This also grants a dance mental plus 75 uncap. Her 4-star unlock is the Rainbow passive and a dance mental plus 75 uncap. Said Rainbow passive is a dance 180% up and attention 100% down that requires your current mental to be 35% or higher and 69% or lower. So anywhere within that range will let you activate that passive. This has a 30% chance to activate once and is limited to once per turn. Yuika, I think, earns anywhere from a B+ to a double S, of course depending on the number of copies that you get. Again, it's the usual Twilight's collection issue. 2-star feels like a real sweet spot for this card, as getting access to this specific passive makes her a huge impact on teams like She's or Antika the most. Again, Hokuda could potentially use this in the future, but for now, it's not necessarily the best thing they want to be doing. You'd be using it in off turns where Natsuha is not important, but as it stands, Natsuha is really the only card that matters in Dance Hokuda, so making that card worse through this card is probably not what you want to be doing. I'm personally a huge believer in the future of this card, despite its potential hindrances with attention down only particularly benefiting Antika, but that's fine. Dance Antika have historically been so dependent on not equal Yuika for so long, so any further changes to help pull them into modernity is certainly ideal. Here's to hoping. That will do it for the video today. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to let me know in the comments. Like it, share it around, let your friends know exactly what we're doing over here on the channel. So, till the next video, I've been Sho. Once again, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day.